in other areas. But the one question I have for applying it to Earth is, why would you want to go that fast? Like, what purpose is doing that process over something like what Elon Musk has proposed with his SpaceX stuff, where you just go up, you skip a lot of it by going up out of the atmosphere, and then you move where you want it to go, and then you come back down. It seems like it'd be less risky compared to going hypersonic in atmosphere with all these other, like, turbulence type things coming into it.
So I suppose the first thing to give some context to, right, is if you want to get to orbit, which is kind of what you're saying, this presumes, right, I want to be orbital.
Well, getting from point A to point B is the purpose. It's just what is the...
Well, the fastest way to go from point A to point B is always a straight line.
Yeah.
The problem is a straight line through the atmosphere at high velocity is very melting. Yeah. And so we lack the technology to do that. So instead, for the longest time, the fastest way was a rocket ride up and then travel basically suborbitally through space and then pop back down where you want to be. But that is a very roundabout way to avoid you actually end up traveling a very long way to avoid a very small amount of atmosphere just because it's so problematic. So if you can fly fast enough, it is quicker, much quicker to do that. But it's really melty, which makes
it sounds dangerous.
Yeah, so far. I mean, hey, maybe one day we'll have the technology that it'll be as safe as air travel. I don't know. But right now, the engines tend to explode. Tiny variations, cracks or chips on any kind of thermal protection immediately melt the vehicle. And we don't really understand what we're doing. So
when you go supersonic, doesn't it also can cause damage to things around you? So if you go from one civilian sector to another civilian sector, you might destroy things as you just go hypersonic. There's like 50 of these planes going all over the place.
Yeah, that is a problem. And NASA has a whole piece on this where they're trying. There's a low boom supersonic vehicle they were interested in building to see if you could fly supersonic vehicles over civilian areas without, at the very least, deafening everyone. But yeah, I mean, if you go supersonically close enough to infrastructure, it will do things like at least rattle, if not break windows. It disturbs wildlife. It annoys people. It damages hearing. The shockwave that comes off of a vehicle as it goes past you, it might as well be the same as an explosion, effectively, as far as you're concerned. That pressure wave when it hits you is very high. And that will cause damage. And so, that's a real concern. And to what extent you'll ever really see people fly hypersonically over populated areas is unclear to me. You would realistically fly to a high enough altitude. You would try to climb, like Concorde did this, right? Concorde, which was a supersonic plane, but it's had the same noise problems. It would take off, climb as quickly as it could to some altitude where it could be heard less, would fly away from anyone subsonically, and then it would accelerate up to supersonic speeds, fly over the ocean where all you're going to do is make the fish sad, and then slow down again once you got over land. So Concorde did a lot of take off from somewhere and fly over a bunch of ocean for 10 hours to get somewhere really quick, kind of, so Concorde, I suppose, 3 hours, but and you would likely see the same with civilian aircraft, right? You would need to take them off from somewhere coastal. They will take time to get to altitude because they're not very efficient flying subsonically, right? It's a very different design, right? It's like a boat doesn't look like an airplane because it's different physics. These things don't look like normal planes. So they're very inefficient when they're not traveling at their cruise speed. So you'd have to take them off, climb, and then fly. And then, you'd hope that you were going to somewhere like Australia where you could turn a 16-hour, 18-hour flight into a 2-3 hour flight. And that would be worth it, right? But the real application for hypersonic flight, as I see it, is single stage to orbit vehicles. So space planes, basically planes that will fly you to space. That's why you would be interested in being able to fly like that, because then everyone can just hop on a plane and go to orbit for less than $1,000. There's absolutely zero reason why going to space should cost me any more than it should to go to England, or Mexico, or Canada, or anywhere else.
Yeah, I
In fact,
think
arguably,